All right, welcome into Sports Bit. Pauly and Teddy, betting insight today, Wednesday, April 13th. A great show coming up. Deep dive. NHL Playoffs start tonight. Brian Blessing to preview the playoffs. Play of the day, of course, and it's the final day of the regular season in the association. We run down all the playoff scenarios. We got great numbers on the get-in price to Golden State and Los Angeles if you want to check out those games. And big game breakdown. It's a mess in the East. We can have a four-way tie for the 3 seed. We'll go over Miami and Boston and also Golden State and Memphis. All of that coming up. But first, Teddy, start us off with a quick rant.
Oh, yeah, man. So last night, I'm betting, and you do this in any sport. You and I, Paul, we're both watchers, all right? There are guys who bet, and they look at the numbers, and they're making their bets. They're not watching the games.
Uh-huh.
There are guys like us that watching is a big part of the handicap, not just for that night, but for future wagers. Most of what I learn about teams comes from watching them as opposed to other sources.
Uh-huh.
So we're watchers, dude. I got the Mets Marlins under, and it's never in doubt. It's a no sweat. We talked about a lot of this stuff on the show yesterday, and yet there's nothing less fun than sweating an under. One runner gets on base, you're like, oh no, here it goes. You got first and third, and you got an under, you're like, oh man, this is a nightmare. In the NBA, you're betting an under, and someone hits a three, and then someone hits a three on the other end, you're like, oh, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
So profitable wagers at times, but man, nothing less fun than sweating an under. And most of the time, sports betting is supposed to be fun, isn't it?
Well, you're rooting for nothing to happen.
Yeah.
So I was involved in the OKC Spurs game under in game, and look at it was a dead under, and then it goes to overtime. So when you think you're safe, you got to sweat that too. So I know what you're saying. It's a pain in the ass, man.
Yeah, and the truth is that the number one thing we want to do, we want to win bets. That's the only thing that we're trying to do is win as many bets as we can. But you want to have some enjoyment in the process, man. Sweating unders, and it doesn't matter what sport it is. In the NBA, in basketball, you're like, okay, miss. Okay, slow it down. Okay, miss. In football, you're like, okay, punt.
Yep.
Run it up the gut now, punt. Give me an incomplete pass here. Or give me even better, a complete pass and then a tackle before the first down. It really is you're rooting for nothing. And I watch almost every night. I hate watching unders. I really do.
No bad beats tonight. We got all these bad bets, and let's start with the Dodgers, where we have, a good story has been a particular pitcher, which you'll touch on in a second. But the bad, Hatcher comes in, bullpen blows it again.
Yeah. Of course, if you had the opposition to outscore Kenta Maeda prop, which doesn't exist, you haven't won yet. How easy? There's a guy that comes over. First couple of starts in baseball. Let's see. He scored more runs, 1, than he's allowed, 0. But that Dodgers middle relief has been a big problem already. And it was a problem again on Monday, as you mentioned. Maeda shuts him down, and the D-backs get a win they really needed against a Dodger team that's kind of finding ways to lose already, aren't they, Paul?
Yes, no doubt about that. How about the Pistons? They sit Reggie Jackson before the game. Ton of money comes in on Miami, and now you're stuck with Detroit and Cleveland tonight, where Detroit's locked in. They play each other. Game 1 is Sunday, so you get nothing from these teams tonight.
Yeah, you call it the ultimate flat tire game in Cleveland. Two teams that are going to open up against each other in the playoffs and playing in game number 82 of the regular season. That should be a real treat for the fans in Cleveland.
Nice job by the 76ers. Oh, my God. They had an 8-point lead against Toronto, and that disappeared in a hurry.
They got outscored by 30 in the second half after leading at the break. But, again, I can't imagine putting money on a team like Philadelphia at this stage of the campaign. A team that's like, please let the losing stop. A team that is not going to take a punch. And, of course, not that many bettors did bet the 76ers last night. Tons of Toronto money in that ball game. And even though Philly led by margin at halftime, the end result, 76ers, a pretty bad bet. What about those National League overs? Any one of them was a bad bet yesterday. 5 games, 5 unders, Pauly.
Yep.
And only one of the 5 came within 2 runs, and that was only because the Dodgers bullpen melted down and gave up 4 to Arizona. Nothing but unders in the NL last night. Any over bets we're all wrong sides.
How about the Spurs over and the Spurs side? It was fascinating to watch the market go crazy once the news leaked out that OKC was sitting everybody. Now, congratulations to the Spurs. They joined the 85-86 Celtics as the only team to go 40-1 at home. But the struggle in overtime to beat the scrubs with OKC.
Yeah, and of course, if you had the over in that game, and not many bettors did, that total was bet down from as high as 206 down to 202. And with the extra 5 minutes of basketball, still finished under. You had a right side under when the game goes into OT, and you're still able to cash your ticket.
Poor Corey Kluber. What does this guy have to do to get a win?
Oh, man. Over the last 3 seasons, the Indians are now 33-35 when he starts, and Kluber is almost always chalk. So not only what we saw last night, let's see, the 2 things that have happened over and over and over again with the former Cy Young winner. One, well, let's see. In 20 of his 34 starts over the last 2 seasons, Cleveland has scored 2 runs or less for their ace. And then it feels like the other 14 of his starts, the bullpen blew it for him like they did yesterday. And both things were in play for the Tribe in yesterday's contest. They only scored 1. The bullpen behind Kluber got lit up again. This guy has got to be getting frustrated with his inability to win games. And, of course, if you're betting against Corey Kluber, you're 3-0 already this year after making a boatload of profits doing the exact same thing for a pitcher the advanced markets love. Oh, the metrics are great on Corey Kluber. But if you bet him, you've lost a small fortune over the last couple of seasons.
Yikes, and we're back on track. Easy play of the day winner yesterday with the Giants, but they were betting Colorado big time because the news came out that Posey was going to sit.
Yeah, it's crazy. The total didn't move. The total held steady at 11. But when Posey was announced as out, the market really went nuts. San Fran opened as high as minus 130 in that game. They closed as the underdog. They were plus 105, and obviously easy winner for the Giants, even though we gave out a bad price on yesterday's show for the play of the day. We gave you a winner, and we gave you an easy winner. I'll take it. What about the Mariners, Paul? We're talking about bad bets.
Yikes.
Here's a 2-6 Mariners where they lose 8-0 at home, off to another awful start. This is a team, they spent all this money, then they revamped everything this past offseason, new GM, everything's going to be better this year. 2-6 and getting walloped on a nightly basis. They were a wrong side against Texas last night.
Yep, rough start for Seattle, Minnesota, Atlanta, and a great job by the Orioles. I was dead wrong on that team. What are they, 7-0, 8-0, whatever, 7-0 first time since 1944? Incredible start for the Orioles.
Just a week into a 162-game season.
Yeah.
I mean, though Baltimore's been the anti-advanced metric play in recent years. They really have. The Quants hate that team. The Orioles have overachieved in 3 of the last 4 seasons. They're starting to do it again here. Buck Showalter is a guy that I like a lot.
All right, it's going to get nuts up next. We'll run down all the playoff scenarios, the final night of regular season in the NBA, and Golden State goes for the record. All that coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today. All right, time for a big game breakdown. Let's get into the association. Heat and the Celtics. 5 o'clock Pacific on ESPN. No line, no early line. Now, we could have a 4-way tie for the 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. Here's your scenarios. The Heat are the 3 seed with a win or an Atlanta loss. The Heat are the 5 seed if Atlanta wins and the Heat and the Hornets lose. They're the 6 seed if Atlanta and Charlotte win and the Heat get beat. Atlanta's the 4 seed if the Heat win or they lose. The Celtics are the 4 seed with a win and an Atlanta win. They're the 5 seed if Boston and Charlotte lose, or if Boston wins and Atlanta loses. And they're the 6th seed if the Hornets and Boston gets beat.
What?
Huh?
I'm lost already, man.
I know, it's
I'm
difficult.
way lost. All right, let me try it this way.
All right.
If Atlanta wins, Boston beats Miami, and Charlotte wins, it goes like this. Atlanta's 3, Boston's 4, Miami's 5, Charlotte's 6. If Atlanta wins, Boston beats Miami, and Charlotte loses, then it goes Atlanta 3, Boston 4, Miami 5, Charlotte 6. If Atlanta wins and Miami beats Boston and Charlotte wins, Miami 3, Atlanta 4, Charlotte 5, Boston 6. If Atlanta wins, Miami beats Boston and Charlotte loses. I could go on and on here, Paul. There's 20 of these scenarios.
Oh, this is great.
It's insane.
Yeah, your way is better. But this is, I mean, you could have a 4-way tie for the 3 seed, all these teams right there. And the beauty, the games are going on at the same time.
Yeah, exactly, which is unlike in the West. But let's just make this very clear. If Miami wins, Miami's a team that controls their own destiny.
Yeah.
If they win, they get the 3, or if the Hawks lose,
Yeah.
Miami gets the 3. All right. Atlanta can only be seeded 3rd or 4th. They can't fall down to 5 or 6, so they will get a home game. And Charlotte will not get a home game. They can only be seeded 5 or 6. Boston and Miami are the two teams that really could be all over the map. Miami could be as high as 3, as low as 6.
Mm-hmm.
Boston could be as high as 4, as low as 6. So, yeah, there's a lot on the line for that Celtics Heat matchup. Even though we talk about seeding and players don't care as much about seeding as they do about actually making the playoffs, this is one game that clearly matters because it's going to come down potentially to a Game 7 in one of these series. And you'd rather have Game 7 on your home floor.
Yes. If you look at this graphic, NBA defense, points per 100 possessions at the All-Star break. San Antonio was number 1, Golden State was number 2, and the Celtics were number 3. Celtics checking in at 99.6. The Celtics since the break, they're 9th at 104.7. The last 8 games, they're 19th, 106.1. What is going on in Beantown? Play some defense. And I know a lot of that had to do with the Crowder injury.
Yeah, but Crowder's back now, and so is Kelly Olynyk, and it's supposed to be time where Boston is putting their defense together. I got a quote from Brad Stevens like a month ago talking about he was concerned about the Celtics defense and the level of slippage that they've been having, and it's gotten worse since that quote, not better. The seedings may not matter to the Celtics unless they can rebuild a defense that is absolutely lost right now. This team isn't going anywhere in the playoffs anyway, but are they capable? Is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. But, we've seen this team play great defense, and we've seen them create a lot of steals, a lot of deflections, very active in the passing lanes. That just hasn't happened in recent weeks for the Celtics. And unless Crowder is able to kind of spark that team defensively, Boston may well be a one and done this postseason, a team that I was so high on 2 months ago.
See if they can turn it around right. I mean, we know what happens when they bring their A game. They won at Cleveland. They won at Golden State. Come on, guys. Figure it out.
They're capable. I mean, the Celtics, they have a series win against an elite team in them. They really do. But coaxing it out of them may not be so easy.
To the Western Conference, not that hard. Portland wins, they're the 5 seed. Houston wins, they're the 8 seed. Be careful, though. This is tricky. Where you look at the start times, there's a couple teams that they can take the floor and they know they're already eliminated or at least locked in to their seed.
Yeah, I mean, the graphic here with the standings shows it pretty clearly. They're Portland with the 1-game lead over Dallas, with the 1-game lead over Memphis, and then Houston and Utah with the same record fighting for the number 8 seed. But, of course, the Jazz lose the tiebreaker to the Rockets. So note the start time. Kings-Rockets starts early. Or, relatively early, 5 o'clock here on the West Coast, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Utah game starts late, so the Jazz have the potential to take the court already eliminated. What a deflator that would be. Utah is one of those teams and one of those games you can't really bet on or against the Jazz in game number 82 until you know what's going on with Houston, Sacramento. But watch that market move around if the Rockets go up 20 in the second quarter. Or if the Rockets go down 20 in the second quarter, for that matter. The markets will be reacting with the Utah line as Kings-Rockets are going on. But hard for me to say anything about the Jazz because the pressure will be on them if Houston loses, obviously. But, what are they, 15-point chalk against Sacramento? And the Kings, in theory, they're going to battle, right? They're going to classic NBA upset setting.
Yeah.
DeMarcus Cousins and Rajon Rondo step up to spoil the Rockets' chances. But, that ain't going to happen. Cousins, Rondo already been ruled out. Same thing with Darren Collison. So, the silver lining for the Kings, they see a lot of Seth Curry tonight.
Seth Curry.
He's your boy, man. Double figures in 6 straight games. Had 20 points and 15 assists versus Phoenix on Monday. His brother's getting the hype.
Yep.
But Seth Curry, he's found a spot in the NBA in Sacramento, and he's really contributing for that team of late.
Yes, he has played well, no doubt. All right, to the big one, Grizzlies and the Warriors. Warriors, 17.5, 213 the total. The record's on the line, but what does it mean as far as the spread? The last time they played in Golden State, they beat Memphis by 50.
Yeah. And of course, the Grizzlies. This is the ultimate playing out the string of the regular season team. We went to L.A. last night in non-competitive effort, and they trailed wire to wire, lost 110 to 84. Didn't put that push together in the fourth quarter the Grizz have been known to do at times. No Tony Allen in that game, making the loss of Conley and Gasol that much worse. That being said, let's not forget the Grizzlies gave the Warriors everything they could handle last Saturday, that 1-point Golden State win. And of course, the all-time record is on the line, but that doesn't mean they have to win by 17 and a half points. This is a spread where the books know what's going to happen here. They know that it's going to be very, very difficult to attract Memphis money for this ball game. There are no bargains with Golden State laying 17 and a half, even against a team they beat by 50 on this floor, as you mentioned, the last time they played here.
The record, these amazing numbers we've been running down since we started on Sportsbet with Golden State. Here's two I came across. They're 5-7 when they're down double digits in the fourth quarter. The next best is Dallas at 5-29. Also, in the last 2 years, Curry has made more threes than Jordan and Bird in their career. This is ridiculous. And I'll tell you something else. This is ridiculous, too. This is courtesy of Ticketmaster. Golden State tonight. Get-in price, $339. The average ticket, $550. Most paid for, $5,000. You want to go see Kobe, the farewell tonight? This is courtesy of StubHub. At the Laker game, get-in price, $740. Average ticket, $1,000. Most paid for, $27,000 to see Kobe shoot 50 times.
Now, if you had a choice, which game would you go to? For me, it's a no-brainer.
Come on, it's a no-brainer. Golden
State.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're both going to see Golden State. And the thing about Kobe, if you see Kobe's last game, and you're like, all right, I paid $20,000 to go see Kobe's last game.
Yeah.
20 years from now, I'm like, okay, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, if you see Kobe win a championship, yeah, see Kobe in Game 7 of the Finals, maybe that's something to shell out for. Golden State's about to set NBA history. This is a game that you can still talk about and be proud to be at in 20 years. And what, $500 average price? What do you say we take a trip up there tomorrow, Paul?
You got it. Yeah.
Tonight, I should say.
Yeah. We got to leave right now. Another thing too. If you only have one television and you're watching the Laker game on ESPN2 instead of the Warriors, there's something wrong with you. I don't care if the Warriors are up 20. Who wants to see Kobe go 7-36? So
what sports bettors have one television, dude?
I don't know. There's some people TVs out there.
Three
Come on.
TVs.
Come on.
I know you guys out there in the watcher viewer land are watching on one of multiple screens. At least I think so.
Hope so.
We do.
Again, it's a huge night in the world of sports. The NHL Playoffs are underway with 3 games. We preview that with Brian Blessing coming up next on Sportsbet. 5 great minutes with Brian. Betting and insight today. All right, time for the deep dive. 5 great minutes. Brian Blessing is on last week. We talked golf. He also had Willett in his pocket Friday at 50-1. He always finds a way. Now with the NHL playoffs underway, 3 games coming up tonight. Brian, this is not like the NBA playoffs. You look at 7 of the 8 series prices. They're all in the $1.50, $1.40 to $1.60 price range here.
No, Paul, and I got to be honest with you, buddy. We've been doing this together a long time, and I usually walk in with a solid frame of reference and where I'm going to go. This postseason, I really think I want to see a little bit of action before I can come up with a defined opinion on a lot of these series. I really walk in going, a lot of these are coin flips. It's wide open.
Yeah. How about the Kings, 4-1 to win the West? That surprises me because of how now the playoff experience, certainly in the big game experience, but they really struggled down the stretch, especially that tough loss Saturday where they blew a 3-goal lead to the Jets at home.
Well, the funny thing is, a month ago, LA was kind of my pick, because I think Quick can elevate his game to the required level, and I would also throw this out there that I think it's a correlated parlay. If LA's winning the Stanley Cup, and there are those offerings that are out there, the odds to win the Conn Smythe as the most valuable player, I would say Drew Doughty would be the guy, or Quick, but I would lean to Doughty. I almost threw my remote control through the TV a couple years ago because I had Doughty at like 40-1, and he should have won it, and they gave it to Justin Williams. But that first-round series with San Jose, the Sharks had a surprise. They had an unbelievable road record this year. I still think L.A. gets by them, but it's not the walkover. That was a tough draw for L.A.
And a tough draw for the Blues. It seems every year they go up against the Blackhawks, who they can't beat.
Yeah, I saw that, and I said, boy, poor St. Louis. And listen, Hitchcock's job's on the line there. The one thing I would say, sometimes the number tells you something. And I almost fell over when, in essence, this is a pick'em series. I know St. Louis has home ice advantage, but they couldn't have caught Chicago at a better time. I think this is a team that I think is tired, Paul. They played a lot of games the last 4 years. I think they're tired. And if you think back to last year, they were in trouble in the first round. They had to go to Darling just to get out of the first round. I think St. Louis might be catching them at the right time here, and I think I'm going to have a slight lean to the Blues kicking the door down. And the thing is, if they beat Chicago, Paul, I always say the first-round series is the toughest one to win. You win, you start to believe. I think the Blues, if they beat the Blackhawks, I think they go very deep.
Rangers and Penguins. How about Pittsburgh after Malkin went down and how hot they were to finish the season?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And scoring goals in bunches. But you know what? Special teams and goaltending, and not necessarily in that order. Goaltending and special teams usually gets the job done in the postseason. The winner of this series, I'll tell you who's drooling over this series is Washington, who better not take Philly lightly. But Washington's got to be thrilled that the Rangers in Pittsburgh hook up in the first round, and Washington knows one of them at least is going to be out of the way. Current form, it's Pittsburgh, but I don't trust the Penguins' goaltending. I would always lean towards Lundqvist to step up and play big.
There's always a team that has that hot goalie and makes a surprise run in the postseason. Give me a team that could do that and surprise a lot of people.
Oh, I mean, from a surprise angle, if you wanted an upset in the first round, I would just maybe throw this at you. All the pressure was on Blashill and Detroit to keep their streak of making the playoffs alive. And so it's almost like maybe the pressure's off because they just got in, but they catch Tampa Bay without Stamkos. Johnson just got hurt over the weekend. Detroit might be catching Tampa Bay at the right time. I think Detroit's worth a flyer plus $1.30 over Tampa Bay. And I'll tell you what, I can see the Islanders giving Florida a run for their money. Florida, a really good young team. Love Ekblad. Luongo's played well, but Luongo hasn't played well in the playoffs. So I think in the East, Detroit and the Islanders are capable of pulling off upsets.
Not to mention Bishop was horrible down the stretch. He couldn't stop a beach ball. Who goes to the Stanley Cup Finals?
Oh, boy, that's the $64,000 question. L.A. kind of limped in. I really was looking long and hard at L.A. I really am thinking if St. Louis, and this is a late development, like I said, I want to see some action here before I say anything with conviction. But I think if St. Louis beats Chicago, they might sit there and go, hey, you know what? We're the guys to beat. And St. Louis could go on a tear. So from an upset side of things, I'd say St. Louis. I'd consider in the West. I think it's between them and L.A. And in the East, I'm going to give it to Washington. But I'd be very leery of Washington if they stub their toe. It's in the first round against Philadelphia.
How about the Ducks? They got off to that slow start where they couldn't score, and they could end up winning the division. No respect for the Ducks?
Oh, no. Like the Ducks a lot. I do think that Anderson is solid in net, but I don't think he's a world beater. And sometimes, and the Ducks are an interesting team because they can be pretty inconsistent. And even though they've got some really good defensemen like in Fowler and Vatanen, sometimes they run around in their own end of the rink a little bit too. I think they're certainly in contention, Paul. I'm not saying, I just don't think this is their year.
It's his favorite time of year. Golf, horse racing, NHL playoffs. Another great job at Brian Blessing on Twitter. Brian, thanks for 5 great minutes.
Paul, you're the best, bud. Have a great day.
You too. Up next, play of the day on SportsBit. Betting Insight today.
So, you know why we have Brian Blessing talking hockey with Pauly? Because I don't know anything about hockey. Pauly, you got a play of the day as well from the NHL. We're talking series price. What do you got for us tonight?
Let's piggyback Brian here, and series price, let's take the Detroit Red Wings plus $1.30 against Tampa Bay. We have the better goalie. We have a hot team. I know all the injuries with Tampa Bay, and as I mentioned, Bishop has been an absolute sieve the last couple of weeks. They should send out Datsuk as a winner. Let's go with the Detroit Red Wings. And again, in this sport, home ice, not that big of a deal, so that doesn't concern us. Detroit Red Wings plus $1.30 to win the series. Money time. That's the play of the day. Back tomorrow, Thursday and Friday, going to be hectic, and we'll plenty of NBA playoff preview talk. We'll do a lot of that, have some guests on as well, and that'll be coming up the rest of the week on SportsBit. Betting Insight today.